Hello and welcome to What If I Fail, the podcast with me, your host, Alex Cowart. Last episode, we were talking about the trust recession, the real trust recession. We talked about how the lack of trust and how it creates this negative feedback loop. And we talked about it on a really wide level. This is happening across all industries. This is happening across most sort of areas of business, entrepreneur and SME and corporate, in fact. And we talked about how it's making business, particularly for entrepreneurs, feel harder than ever. And at the end of the episode, I highlighted that one of the times this shows up for us the absolute most is when things feel like they've been going really well for a while, when things feel like, everything's been working, the snowball is happening, the momentum is building, and then almost out of the blue, everything just suddenly gets hard. They are in this position, or you are in this position, where the launch methods that you used to use that would get you 5 figures, that would get 10K plus launches, they've stopped working. Or maybe they are still sort of working, but they feel like an energetic black hole that you just can't find yourself showing up for anymore. Maybe the posts that you used to put out there that worked in one place, you're now putting in another place and it's getting crickets. They're not working anymore. And you're starting to question your messaging. Maybe you've evolved, you have progressed, and your clients that you have and the work that you're delivering for them no longer match the abilities and the expertise that you have, and you don't feel challenged in your work anymore, and you want to increase, but you only know how to pick up the work at the level you were doing and not the work at the level you want to be working at. These are questions, these are areas, these are situations that are coming up all the time, specifically in the work that I do, because all of my clients are in a transition point. Either they are mid-transition, they've just moved into a new role at work if they're employed, or they have just experienced an up level, or maybe they are stuck on a plateau and they're looking at their next level, but it feels like they can do nothing to get there. They're really struggling. These are the transitions that I work with. I work with clients that are in this position. And one of the things that we talk about is how often this comes up, how this, just as we're reaching a new threshold, suddenly it feels like everything's breaking. And we should feel like, within our current level, we're reaching the heights of this new level. We're getting right up there. And yet it feels like everything is just falling apart around us. And we call this another level, another devil. And it effectively is the negative feedback loop 2.0. So it is that same negative feedback loop where things are getting sticky, where things are getting really hard, where they're getting frustrated, we start to question ourselves. We start to have that friction. And when we're questioning ourselves, we start to build in this self-doubt. And with the self-doubt comes hesitation. Of course it does. We take a moment, we regroup, we assess, we hold back before we take moves, particularly when we don't want to lose the progress that we have already made. We've put so much into it, we've created so much, we've reached this certain height. We don't want to break that in reaching the next level. And so we take a step back, we hold, we pause, we think, I'll just make sure I make the right move. And then we question over and over again what that right move actually is. And what we're actually doing here is just creating, feeding into this loop of self-doubt. We're feeding into hesitate, hold back, pause, consider. And what happens is, as we're doing this, we're getting worse and worse results, which is feeding into this loop. Everything is going worse. And so instead of asking what's really going on, what we're asking, or what my clients are asking, is, what did I do wrong? What did I break? How can I fix it? And I cannot begin to explain how many times messaging has been blamed as a scapegoat, a poor scapegoat for this lack of results or this breaking of results. They shrink, they minimize what they want. Oftentimes we will find people saying, you know, I didn't want that anyway. This is just a sign. It's okay. I'm just going to drop back. I like being here. I like being small. And it's not because they've done anything wrong. It is just that this is a friction point. This is a pinch point. This is the point at which your capacity is stretched. You've reached this certain level of success. You have achieved things you never thought were possible. You have got a really good flow of business coming through, and suddenly everything feels awkward. Everything feels stretched. Your identity is stretched. Your capacity is at capacity. Your responsibilities have grown, and that feels like quite a big burden that you're carrying. It's heavy. There's so much more that you have to do every single day. You don't have the time. There's that balance between delivering in your work and also then having time to market and to do the sales and do the marketing and do the things that you need to do in order to grow your business, whilst also having to deliver a lot more. And ultimately, it's uncomfortable. And this is a truth that I think realistically we do know, but we conveniently forget on a regular basis, is that growth is uncomfortable. It's not fun, right? It doesn't feel, a lot of people, they think that growth should feel like confidence. Growth should feel just juicy and amazing and wonderful. And sometimes it does. But more often than not, growth feels like pressure. Growth feels like increased pressure, because you're in this squeeze point. You're in this point where your comfort zone is getting stretched. And to get stretched, to get bigger, it needs to be pushed. It's going to feel tight. It's going to feel restrictive for a moment. And this point, this squeeze point, this pressure point, this is the absolute key. How you respond to this point in time decides whether or not you are going to reach the next threshold or stay where you are. Because you have two options. You can retreat from the uncomfortableness. You can say, this feels awful. I'm going backwards. I'm going to just hold back. I'm going to stay small. I'm going to not push myself. I don't like the feelings this is bringing up in me. I don't like the questions and the way that this is making me question my confidence and my abilities, my expertise and what I want and all of these things. This is making me feel inadequate and I don't like that. So I'm going to go back to where I felt most confident. Or you can adapt. You can take a deep breath, accept the discomfort, accept that it feels tough, accept that more is expected of you. Gosh, that's a sentence and a half. And you can start to see this discomfort. You can start to, each time this new devil comes up because we're at a new level, you start to get excited. You start to think, great, where's my next threshold? Like, this is a growth point. This is exciting. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but I can get through it. And if you can get there, if you can hold on, if you can just breathe through the squeeze, it will even out. It will, you don't stay in this pressure forever. Capacity does grow. You do, that comfort zone, it gets stretched and suddenly everything starts feeling easy again. Everything starts to flow a lot better. Suddenly you start finding the things that are working rather than kind of worrying about stuff. You're starting to just take action. You just have to last through that squeeze point and you can reach the next threshold. You can reach that next level and you can take a breath and then eventually get frustrated at the new plateau that you're on. But for now, you get to enjoy it. You get to, as my mom would say, have a view break. She would always have Kit Kats and we would climb mountains. And each time you reach that new point, it's difficult and you have to push a bit harder. But then you get to have a rest and look at the view and enjoy what you've achieved. You just have to push through to get there first. And this is where having this awareness of what's going on, knowing that this is coming up for you, knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable, knowing that you need to put plans in place that are going to stretch you in ways that you don't necessarily want to be stretched, that you might have to retry things that you've already, you feel like you've tried something once and you're going to have to try it again and you don't necessarily want to, and you will, right? You just have to breathe through it. This is the point where we have to take a second, witness it for what it is, right? Another level, another devil is a good sign, because all of these feelings coming up for us show that we are reaching something new, we are achieving something new, we're about to have this growth that we've been dreaming of, as long as we can hold our nerve long enough to work through it and stick with it and hold on. If you can do that, just so much awaits you. It's going to be magical. It's going to feel great. And that is the difference between the people that you see who are super successful, who have everything that you want, and you currently. The people that have everything you want, they didn't stop because it got uncomfortable. They kept pushing. And it's not pushing in a negative, like hustle, grind, force yourself, work every hour under the sun. This can look pretty chill. As long as you're not walking backwards, as long as you're not moving backwards. This can be, this isn't about hustling and doing everything you can possibly think of and becoming a bro salesperson. This is about not giving up when things get tough. It's about being the kind of person and the kind of leader that your world needs you to be, ultimately, that your clients need you to be, that your audience need you to be in order to invest at new levels with you. So for me, when I feel this coming up, and I have just reached my level. 2025, almost the entirety of 2025 was my pinch point. It was uncomfortable and it asked things of me that I found really difficult, and I had to do a lot of self-reflection, but I had to match that self-reflection with action. I had to start taking actions. I had to start pushing myself. I had to start gathering small amounts of evidence that I could use for a positive feedback loop instead of the negative feedback loop. And I felt that new level. I hit that new level when I was in New York at the beginning of the year. It really landed for me. I was walking around, it was specifically the Wednesday, and we'd been in Times Square, and I was walking around. I felt cool. I felt settled. I felt calm. We kept on, joking about insecurities, and I was like, oh, I don't have any of those. Because at that moment in time, I didn't feel any insecurity at all. Everything had landed. The new and improved me 2.0, 4.0, got at this point 37.0, had landed. It felt real, it felt grounded, and I'm so glad that I hit that level when I did, because obviously the rest of this year has massively rocked all of that. And I think had I not have reached my new threshold, had I still been reaching, this squeeze might have been a squeeze too far. I don't know. I'll never know, because the timing was what it was, and I had landed and it had achieved, and therefore I had my feet on solid ground when all of this happened, and I was able to work from that place rather than a place of instability and insecurity. I like to think that had I not, I still would have kept going. I'd have kept pushing. I wouldn't have pulled back. I've done that before. It didn't make me happy. Yes, it put me back into my comfort zone, but it didn't feel good. For all that it was more comfortable, it was also not where I wanted to be. So the question I want you to ask yourself is, are you currently in a position where things don't feel like they're working? You're in the negative feedback loop, everything's getting harder, what used to work isn't working for you. You know that there is more. You know that you want more. Deep down, you know you want more. Even if you're lying to yourself and saying that you don't, deep down, you know you want more. Are we facing another level, another devil? Are you in that position? That is a question to ask yourself right now. This podcast is a window into the conversations I have every week with the leaders I work with. If you want to be inside that conversation, not just observing it, you will find the Actual Results Club and my one-to-one work linked below.